joined on the line by a guy who's a familiar face around the rinks and on the screens as well around junior hockey. It's Sam Cosentino joining me here at Sportsnet. And as Sam checks in with us, there he is. And Sam, I've got to think for you, whether it's the OHL draft, the NHL draft, you name it, it's always a special time for you to keep tabs on these players coming into their respective leagues.
Yeah, no question, Terry. And being based in Ontario, it's nice to be able to get out to the OHL Cup whenever possible. And get to see these top guys, because oftentimes what we look at are the players that are drafted. In this priority selection, we're going to see a couple of years down the road in the NHL draft, which is something that's become a specialty of mine. But great work by you, Terry. You're unbelievable. All the heavy lifting over there for years and years, man. It's great to see you.
Well, it's good to see you as well, and we'll see you in person very soon, I'm sure, as well. For you, in your career, you've had a chance, you covered the National Hockey League, you've covered Major League Baseball over the years, but I know that there's a passion for junior hockey in the Ontario Hockey League. For you, what makes the OHL so special?
Well, what's really cool for me, and actually I can speak to this to a most recent experience I had. I was between the benches for the Jets-Philly game the other night, and I looked around and I saw all of these players that I had grew up, calling games with, or they had grown up while I was calling their games. And it was a pretty interesting moment there at one of the commercial breaks. Right at the end of the Philly bench was Owen Tippett, who I had done a lot of games for in his career. And he looked over and he said, "Hey, Sammy, how you doing? Like, how's things going?" So it's just nice to see that full circle come around when, especially looking at those two teams. I think about Logan Stanley, Owen Tippett, Travis Konechny, Travis Sanheim, guys that have come out of the, other junior leagues as well. But what's really cool is to watch the evolution of these players, especially ones in Ontario at 15 years old, progress to being drafted into the Ontario Hockey League, and then progress to certain events, whether it's the Top Prospects game, Canada-Russia series when that was a part of the program, and some of them on their way to the Memorial Cup, and then the next thing you know, they're appearing in the National Hockey League. So it's just really neat to see that progression, basically from 15 to 20 years old, how they grow as young men, both in hockey and in life.
And I'm sure it's always been nice, whether when they were 17 and 16, when you had a chance to maybe sit down for a few minutes with them before a game or after a morning skate or during a Memorial Cup, for example, you get a chance to bend a coach's ear, bend a player's ear, maybe the day before the tournament, for example. And I've got to think those are those special moments that you really recall when you see them in their mid-20s or into their 30s now, starring in the National Hockey League. And kind of remember, I remember when we had a chance to have that little 5-minute chat when he was a wide-eyed 17-year-old.
Yeah, and that's the best part about about the Canadian Hockey League for me, and in the OHL in particular, is the fact that over 15 years of doing games and doing games locally before that for 5 years, so basically 20 years of a life investment into building relationships, networking, people that I play golf with and call friends today. But it's a nice feeling to be able to walk into any of the junior rinks across the CHL and feel welcomed. Had a moment again the other night, the night before the Jets game. Ken Weeb and I, who's a writer for Sportsnet, we drove out to Brandon and watched the Brandon Wheat Kings and the Red Deer Rebels, and got caught up with Don McGilvery, the head coach in Brandon, and Steve Konowalchuk, who we knew from that 2017 Memorial Cup as he was head coach of Seattle at that time. But it really is. It's just about making friends, building relationships, maintaining those relationships for my job currently, to be able to network with all those people. But the greatest part about the CHL, Terry, and having worked a number of NHL games now, is that the people aren't guarded. They want you there. They want to talk about their players. They want to help promote themselves in certain situations, and they want to be able to give you the best information possible on the players so that we can do a good job in getting those stories out there. When you flip over to the National Hockey League, unless you have special rights permissions, you can't just walk into a coach's room and sit down and say hello and shoot the breeze. And oftentimes, as you know, that conversation doesn't even revolve around hockey. It revolves around life and family and those sorts of things outside of the game. But you're bonded through that commonality of hockey. So where the CHL for me will always have a special place in my heart. And by no means is it over. I haven't done games with CBC this year, and I hope to continue that moving forward. But where it always holds a special place is just how welcoming the people are. And I can't really think of, outside of maybe one or two people that I haven't really come to enjoy over my 15/20 years of covering the CHL, and in particular the Ontario League.
when you've seen the OHL championship or the Memorial Cup being awarded, I've got to think for you, it's you see those players and especially those unsung guys, those guys who maybe, chipped in for a big goal at a Memorial Cup or late in the playoffs, and someone that, you look at, it's one thing that, top end players going into the OHL priority selection coming out of the OHL Cup, but I'm sure it's those unsung guys, those, I know, the steady eddies that you also like to coin the phrase as well. And I'm sure you always feel good for those ones that maybe don't get the attention, but at the end of the day, the huge smile on their face as well.
Oh yeah, and there's so many of them over the years that have scored those special goals or have chipped in areas where maybe they didn't throughout the course of the regular season or even in their league playoffs. And thinking back to the Justin Shugs or the Dale Mitchells, going back to the Windsor dynasty in 09 and 10, and moving along to Mississauga, guys like Devontae Smith-Pelly or Casey Zizekas, was having a wonderful year. And then it's cool too to see the superstars. I think about a Zach Phillips who put up a ton of points with the St. John Sea Dogs. 2011, Jonathan Huberdeau was a big part of that winning team. Gerard Gallant, the head coach, and it is really cool to see not only the superstars do their thing, but some of the unheralded guys get the opportunity on the big stage to be able to crown a moment in their life that they might not otherwise have playing at such high level athletic competition.
We talked a lot about the players, and you talked about the coaches as well, but traveling around the country, covering the Ontario Hockey League and the CHL, just how important this junior hockey community is to the communities themselves, to those cities. I remember you and I, were in Shawinigan, for example, when they won the Memorial Cup, and how massive that was. And needless to say, that took over the city and a lot more. And just how there were people in tears, literally, when Shawinigan won that Memorial Cup. And I've got to think that's part of the enjoyment of being part of the junior hockey brass in the OHL and the CHL, is seeing how much junior hockey is a fabric in so many communities across the country.
Yeah, and it's really amazing just how connected the people are to it. And two things that come to mind to me. I think about 2011, Jared Maiden scores in overtime to win the OHL championship against Mississauga. What an unbelievable series that was, and seeing all the people from Owen Sound that had traveled down Highway 10, in Mississauga to get to the game and basically fill the Hershey Center at the time. And then what really struck me, Terry, is on the drive back, little towns like Markdale and Shelburne, back on the way up to Owen Sound, people were out in the streets, cheering on the Owen Sound bus as it went back. And of course, they were met at the Harry Lumley Bayshore Arena by a mass amount of people, and the celebration continued. It just meant so much to that small town, after ownership had fought through a number of things to be able to keep the team there. And so that particular experience really, really struck me when you go back and you watch video of that. And I think one more cool experience that I'll share with you, and I can remember being in Chicoutimi for a time. I know it's outside the OHL confines, but it still speaks to the fabric of the junior hockey. St. John Sea Dogs were in their powerhouse years, the 10, 11, 12 years. And I want to say it was 2012. St. John was up 4-0 in a game against Chicoutimi, and the lights went out, and they couldn't get them back on. And so that was through 40 minutes of play. St. John had to travel to, I want to say it was Quebec or Baie-Comeau, but they had to come back and play the third period. And so it was on basically a Sunday afternoon before our Canada-Russia series had started. There was one period to watch. We were in town, so we said, what the heck? Let's just go on over there. So Rob Falls, Pete Labardius, and I drove over, and basically for one period of hockey. And as that period started, with St. John, the powerhouse team, up 4-0, Chicoutimi scored once, and it was my 500 or 600 people there to watch it, because a lot of people didn't know when they were going to replay the period. And the people that knew showed up and supported. Then there was 4-2, 4-3, and my goodness, with about 3 or 4 minutes left, Chicoutimi ends up tying this thing at 4, and there were people like hugging each other, and 500 people in that building made it sound like 3,000 people. They were just so elated to come back against this powerhouse team in 20 minutes of hockey. St. John ended up winning that game 5-4 in overtime. Chicoutimi got a point out of it, but I'll never forget the passion that those people had, thinking that they were dead to rights on a Sunday afternoon when not many people knew there was a period going on, and they came back to tie it and get a point out of it. So it really speaks to how important these teams are to their particular towns and to their cities, and how much junior hockey has become a fabric of many communities across the 60 teams.
people could see me smiling when you started to bring up the Owen Sound win back in 2011, because I remember that it was a parade going back to Owen Sound, a spontaneous parade for the team bus and the team officials going right back through those towns all the way back to Owen Sound. Initiative you're part of, talking to the players about their involvement with Canadian Blood Services now as well, and I'm sure you see that where here are players that get it, not only when it comes to the hockey side, but also being part of their own communities, being a positive role model. I know over the years talking to the players, you hear that, whether it's the current players and former ones, but I'm sure here's an example where so many of these players knowing they can make such a positive influence in their communities.
Well, let's face it, that Terry, that the percentage of going on to play in the National Hockey League are so slight for these players, that many of them go on to do other things in life, and some of them go on and have pro careers, American Hockey League over in Europe. But for those who don't continue their path past U Sports, with the great scholarship program that the CHL has to offer, get back into what I would term real life. And on that journey to real life, if you will, there's a lot of things that you can do and amplify your voice in your specific community, because there's so many people that look up to you as being a star in that community for your play on the ice. So what does that mean? In totality, it speaks to not only growing young hockey players, but more importantly, growing young men to become profitable members of society, if you will. And so the Hockey Gives Blood group has been so nice to be able to reach out to me to work, somewhat as an ambassador for them. We do a program every February called Difference Makers that, is based on the stem cell donation. With the Logan Boulet effect of what we saw, unfortunately, with the Humboldt bus crash, the Logan Boulet effect has inspired hundreds of thousands of people to think about organ and tissue donation was such an important piece, of the puzzle for the Hockey Gives Blood program for Canadian Blood Services. And then, of course, for an old guy like me who can't donate to the stem cell research and to the stem cell registry, I can be one of those regular blood donors. So it's inspired me personally as an older person to watch 17, 18-year-old players. Recently in Difference Makers, I was able to speak to a couple of gold medalists, and Mika Zandi-Hart and Emily Clark of the Canadian women's national team that won gold in Beijing. And man, oh man, these people are so passionate about what they do and giving back to society, and inspired an old guy like me to get out and give blood. So it's a big part of what I do here. And it's really nice to see that these young people have embraced that and have inspired others. I think about Braden Hache in Kingston and how he's inspired others to go out and give blood. And one more pint of blood that any of us are doing that can be donated is probably one pint that they didn't have if people, like the Braden Haches of the world, didn't put their name to something like this. So I'm really proud to be a part of it, Ter.
We'll correct you. You're not an old guy. We do know that part. We will correct you on that side of it. Braden Hache, his event was sold out. And not sold out, but the registration was, they ran out of spots type of thing in terms of the capacity they had, and it was great to see, and the work that goes in with so many OHL players. Sam, we'll let you get back to your Saturday. We do appreciate the time and appreciate your passion for the OHL and the Canadian Hockey League, and look forward to seeing your insight as, of course, things continue on towards the National Hockey League draft and NHL coverage, you name it, and we will see you around the rink very soon. There's Sam Cosentino joining us from Sportsnet, a guy who's certainly had a lot of time around Ontario Hockey League rinks and CHL rinks, and a passion for the game, and it comes through in all of his work, even dating back to the old days at St. Mike's Arena in the Ontario Hockey League, and going on to see many teams go on to OHL and championships and Memorial Cup titles as well.